as far as the panel goes, I want to turn it over to Susan and Anthony from the college and their two colleagues from the design firm, Benjamin and Prem. And so I'll turn it over to Susan now, who can do more formal introductions. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks to all of you who are here tonight. It's great. I can't see you, but it's great to see the number of participants. I'm glad there's so much interest in the project. So we're happy to be here with you tonight. I am here with, as Jeff said, Anthony Coscignano, who's the Associate Vice President for Auxiliary Services, and Benjamin Strain, who is a senior, who is a principal and the higher education design leader at the DLR group, and Prem Sundaram, who is a senior principal and applied research and sustainability leader at DLR. They have been with us from the beginning. We were just talking before we started, realizing that we started this process originally at the college in the fall of 17. DLR joined us in the fall of 18 and started work on a project in earnest in the winter of 19. And so we've been going for some time now. With that, I'm not going to talk a lot more because these gentlemen have a lot more to say to you and share with you. We are taking questions in the Q&A. We will try to get to some of them as we go, but if not, we will leave some time at the end for moderated questions. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Susan. And apologies, my camera is acting up a bit tonight. If you were on earlier, you may have seen me trying to adjust the lighting in the Zoom settings, but so I may appear in the shadows at times, but it's just the way technology rolled tonight. So as Susan mentioned, it's wonderful to be with everyone here virtually. The numbers continue to rise of interest, and that's just, really warms our hearts to see. So thank you for taking the time tonight to learn more about the Dining and Community Commons project. I think some of those are the key words that we're going to focus on tonight: the Dining and Community Commons. It's really a partnership of projects we see in the existing Sharples and the new construction. Just to go quickly through, we're going to touch very briefly on the project vision and design, really spend the bulk of our conversation in through the lens of sustainability, and Prem will take us through that. And then we're going to share an update on construction. But what's great is when we share the renderings, and we also like to show the current state of construction, so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on campus now and seeing really how the design's coming together. So we start with the project vision, but I think it's a great moment to take a step back and just, kind of all close our eyes and remember what Sharples was about through our various years spent there for dining. It's a reimagined dining experience, and we'll go through how that occurs in the new design here shortly. But we all, can remember coming down the stairs. We're at the checker stations upstairs from the north. We're coming down the stairs, the procession into perhaps waiting a bit longer than we desire to get our food through the servery, and then dispersing through into the large dining areas, either the east dining, the main dining, the south, or the west hall as well. Over the years, it's, Sharples has evolved from its creation in the mid 1960s. There are some great traditions to be celebrated still with the fireplace. But what's wonderful as we look through the historic photos, what was once a lounge is now dining. And so, working with the team, perhaps we can reintroduce some of those traditions that we saw from the early days of Sharples. As an outcome of our engagement process, we're going to see who we talked to in a minute, but these were just some of the key goals that really rose to the top. And again, as Susan mentioned, really the college began their vision, a year or two earlier than DLR Group and the team were able to join them in the design. Really focusing on some of those key aspects of community, certainly expressive of the Quaker values, sustainability. We want to hit on what modern dining means, and really thinking about the functionality of the new dining hall. Things have changed. The technology has increased. We still want to think about that health and beauty and comfort, though, for the students, for the faculty, and the community at large. So we're going to see these really these project goals, these visions, throughout the conversation today. And as we mentioned, as a design team really engaged the campus in winter of 2019, we really believe in a holistic and inclusive process for our design process. So everyone here has a voice, and we believe that to hold true through our process that we call 360 engagement. And as we see on some of the numbers here in the upper left, we were able to have one-on-one conversations with almost a third of the student body, as well as all these wonderful focus groups that we see throughout the faculty, the staff, the Arboretum. We have engaged in a biofuel summit. Prem will talk about that a little bit later on. But really, it was everyone's voice that came together and really found the success, and those core values that we saw previously, those rose to the top through this rich dialogue and conversation. So it wasn't us saying this is what you need, it was really that community coming together, and we appreciate everyone's voice and support through that. It is a lot of effort for everyone to come together, but the results really speak for themselves. So again, quickly touching on the design, we're going to look at the overall site plan. So we're going to look at how the addition and existing charcoals relate, and some of the wonderful outdoor landscape that we're able to create. Again, a rich engagement with the Arboretum, very respectful to their needs and some of the alterations that we need to make to campus to further the dining program. And then we're going to look at floor plans and a few early renderings as we move toward the wrap up of the design here. So a lot here to take in. We're going to pause a little bit, but just two key things. And I'm going to use the laser pointer here. It should pop on here. And so again, here we have existing charcoals. It's a very unique footprint that we all know very well. And here to the south and to the west, we see what is known as the new dining hall. And we'll get into some of the floor plans there. But really, this was a project of extension of space, again, going back to exploration of permaculture, the idea of education, the idea of improving the landscape from what we once had. We want to make this better. And I think some of the key moments, again, thinking about this introduction of the East Courtyard. And so as we approach Sharples from the south today, this is a reimagined public plaza now in the future. The event lawn to the east remains as we work toward McGill Walk and Parish Lawn. The introduction of rain garden and the meadows, really thinking about water management. We want to be good neighbors to the rivers and streams, beyond the grounds of Swarthmore. So that integration of the ecosystem. And then I think what was really interesting for us was the completely reimagining of the West Courtyard. And so what was once today the loading dock, really the back house of the Sharples and dining facility, is reimagined into a student space, courtyard space for all those to enjoy. And again, those public staff and service entrances are marked from the various arrows. So it's a very dynamic renovation and addition to this, and really changes some of that landscape and the pedestrian pathways and that approach and experience of campus. So just a quick view from the south. This is the addition, looking back toward the north. Some of the key features, it is a mass timber structure, so very sustainable, a small carbon footprint, as Prem will mention later on. There is a resemblance of campus culture, of stone, of slate tile, and we also see a hint of the photovoltaic solar panels on the roof here. And so again, we're here in the rain gardens, the rich meadows, and we're looking back toward the outdoor dining terrace. So behind the control point, behind the checkpoint for dining, there is outdoor dining now. And here, again, we're gonna populate some current photos of construction every time we share a rendering. So kind of where we are today and where we will be in the future. Here at the first floor, just kind of helping out orientate everyone, in the bottom right corner, we have existing charpals shaded in gray, and the new dining hall here in the crimson red. And so again, the kitchen and the dining has all shifted out of, or mostly shifted out of charpals that we see here at the top of the screen, and moving into the large and really efficient and beautifully daylit addition here for the dining hall. Some notable things to move, the Office of Student Engagement is moving from Parish Hall into what was once the kitchen, and this is a completely, again, reimagined space, new finishes, new opportunities for daylight, and really creating that student hub around the student orgs and their lounge space. An additional market cafe really drives success for the student lounge, as well as the rehabilitated fireplace that we see from the historic photo. So really focusing on a lounge type atmosphere for the lounge space itself. Within the dining hall, the new dining hall, there are 10 serving stations or platforms. So again, it's a all you care to eat menu, but in more of a more of a retail setting. You can imagine that it's not a single line into dining, but really past this point here, you're free to go to the serving station of your choice. You can go to multiple service stations and go to the salad bar. You can go to the grill. You can go to the bakery and really collect what you wish to have for that meal. So it's very interactive. What's wonderful too is the dining staff is out front and center, interacting with the students and visitors to the dining hall. So they're no longer tucked behind into the kitchen, but we're really preparing food fresh for everyone at the serving stations. And then really filling this out, besides the seating here in the dining hall and the serving stations, the reimagined kitchen, again, getting what was once back of house to front and center, introducing natural daylight, looking at opportunities for natural ventilation as well, for fresh air for the workers. Again, here we're at the corner of the main dining hall, kind of in the south east corner, looking back toward this large volume of, again, a mass timber structure. Really a reference to the existing fireplace today is what's known as the hearth. This is the pizza oven, all electric pizza oven is served here, as well as the paninis and other really fun interactive station where, again, the workers are out, the dining staff is there interacting with students, having conversations, really learning more about where their food comes and how it's prepared. Again, beautiful daylight, and we'll get into some of the sustainable strategies moving forward. And then bottom left, where we are today in construction. So it's really coming alive on campus. And I know Susan walks by daily and sends us photos if we're not there, and everyone's just full of smiles. The whole campus is, so it's wonderful to see. And the last here, the upper charpals as it is today, again, it's been reimagined. We're actually rotating the stair. And so it's really a more seamless procession from the north entry that is here today. Instead of the checker stations, you're going to be greeted with the welcome desk. You have opportunities for meeting rooms and really more opportunities for student clubs and orgs to meet, really for faculty and staff and students to come together, have that community feel. And the dining that we see up here today is being converted into a game lounge and then the piano lounge. And what's unique about the game lounge is really an opportunity to unplug. It's backgammon, it's cards, it's Dungeons and Dragons, whatever anyone would wish. It was an opportunity for students to say, hey, we're immersed in technology throughout our day, throughout our studies. Can we have an opportunity to unplug? So this is a really unique game lounge within the 21st century where we think we want technology, but it's actually an opportunity to unplug, which is really great. And as we saw from the previous rendering on the page, the new dining hall is 2 levels. There is a accessible elevator centrally located, really thinking about how people maneuver through the space, whether at the grand stair or through the elevator. And that opens up again through what we're calling private dining, but really about meeting rooms. So you can come together over lunch and have a student club or a staff meeting, faculty meeting in these private dining rooms. Additional serving stations are upstairs. And the teaching kitchen then rounds out some of the seating out there. The idea of the language tables, where a specialty guest could come and cook food to the German language table, or what have you. So really exciting opportunity to again bring the community together through those special spaces. And again, as mentioned, we're turning the stair around in the Sharples Lounge. And so this was once really intended to be a fireplace lounge. If we look back to some of the historic photos, and the fireplace is just to our right here on the screen, Kling, the original designer of Sharples Hall, really thought about this as a lounge space. So we're reestablishing the lounge. This is adjacent to the check-in station for dining. But we see here in the photos today that we're actually removing the bridge and then rotating again the stairs. So you come directly from the doors through the Juliet balcony that was once here today, and then down the stairs into the lounge spaces, into the student clubs, and then ultimately into the dining. So it's a wonderful space. Renovation starts approximately a year from now, so we'll see some big changes coming soon. With that, Prem, we need to jump into some sustainability, and I'll pick up instruction at the end.
Absolutely. Thanks, Benjamin. Can you hear me okay? All right. So if you want to move on to the next slide, I want to just frame this conversation about sustainability, which is really important, as Benjamin mentioned during the visioning sessions, as a core criteria for success. Swarthmore has a very robust environmental framework, and most of you are probably familiar with that. And this Dining and Community Commons project exceeded every aspect of Swarthmore environmental framework and then more. So I'm going to talk to you about the journey that we went through. Next slide. So as Susan mentioned, we started in 2018. However, the journey will continue for a very long time to get to our final success metrics in terms of sustainability. This is going to go all the way through 2025. And I'll walk you through just briefly the engagement sessions that we had in the beginning that led us to where we are today in construction. Next. So in the initial RFP process, when Swarthmore College was looking for an architecture firm to design this facility, they had a requirement listed that this building should be a zero net energy building. And this is, again, above and beyond what the Swarthmore Environmental Framework has already put in place. So we demonstrated our experience as DLR Group designing net zero energy buildings. However, next slide, we had 3 questions that we wanted to solve before we begin design. The first question was, what does really getting to zero mean to Swarthmore College, and how does that relate to Swarthmore College's values? And finally, how do we measure success? So these were fundamental questions that drove our design from the beginning. Next. At the same time, when we started, we also realized that our college was going through what is called the Road to Zero map, which is a carbon neutral plan that the college is developing to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035. So we wanted to understand, how does the Dining and Student Commons project play a role in this key plan that the college is developing towards carbon neutrality. So I'll talk about how that comes together. Next. One of the first things that we wanted to explore was, what is net zero? There are lots of nuances to this idea and definition of net zero, from energy, and you probably all have heard from the COP26 conversations these days, carbon is a very important topic. So we discussed what net zero carbon is, but how about net zero water, and how about net zero waste? It's important that we discuss all these different nuances so we know exactly what is the goal that we're going after, and also what is the goal that we're not going after. Next, we also talked about the context of what is net zero. And when you take carbon footprint, we can go all the way from construction to operations, to the materials that are used in construction, as well as transportation and so on and so forth, and all the way down to the food that's served in the campus, what carbon footprint does that have? So we explored all these different options to really understand what is it that we are going after. Next. And at this point, I want to clarify the term zero net energy. Imagine drawing a boundary around your building, around this building, and think of the amount of energy that is being generated on this facility over the course of a year. If the building operates within that budget of the amount of energy that is generated on the facility, then that building will be considered a zero net energy building. This was our criteria that we were going into when we started design. Next. We also wanted to explore, as some of you mentioned, the quality of the food served in the dining facility. We wanted to truly understand, how does dining relate to sustainability? How does food relate to sustainability and wellness? So this was one of the exercises in the engagement sessions we had, where we asked staff, dining staff and students and faculty on how do they see the connections between ingredients and the people who are who serve food and people who are receiving the food at the dining facility and the building itself, and how is it connected to the campus in terms of bringing this awareness towards healthy food, and then how does this all relate to the regional and global impact of where Swarthmore is. So this was one of the interesting sessions we had, because we discovered so much out of this session. Next. You can see a number of engagement sessions on this slide, where the dining staff in the middle and the students on the left, and steering committee, and a lot of conversations with green advisors, food services team, trying to understand what are their priorities when it comes to sustainability. Food, wellness, and sustainability all together. This led to amazing goals that we identified very early in the design before we ever started. Next slide. And I'll highlight a few of them. This is from the green advisors at the campus. To them, what was really important was social justice. And as we started our design, we discovered what social justice meant from their words. Next. From a dining staff standpoint, they were super jazzed on how they can change the culture of yes in lieu of we can't. And one of the goals that they identified was, currently they have 45% of the produce is locally sourced, and they want to achieve 80% in 1 year. And they have a goal of 40% plant-based menu as this progresses, which are amazing design goals, and that changes how and what we procure in terms of the equipment that goes into the kitchen facility. Next, we also developed a very robust set of criteria for what is net zero, and we understood that zero waste is a goal at a campus level. So this particular project will not focus on zero waste, but will support the zero waste goals towards the campus. Next. So now, when it came to how do we measure success, that was the third question, if you remember, that we asked. We asked the college and the steering committee and the faculty. We see a trend in the green building industry. Many of you are probably familiar with LEED as a green building rating system on the top left-hand corner, which assumes that when a building is constructed, it assumes that it is designed to the highest standards. So it relies on this burden of trust. So when we asked the Swarthmore College steering committee and the faculty, we asked them, we see a trend in the industry where it's moving towards a burden of proof, meaning it's not just a plaque on the wall, but does the building actually perform to the design goals that we set in place? And the faculty and the steering committee favored more towards the burden of proof than the burden of trust. Next slide. So what that ultimately led to was, what you see on the left-hand side, this is an important slide, is the values on the left-hand side are the list of values that the entire Swarthmore community identified. As Benjamin mentioned, we had over a third of the students participate in these conversations. And as you can see, those values, public image, beauty and inspiration, comfort, nutrition, equity, carbon, land development, those are the values that were identified as top priorities. And you can see within the Swarthmore environmental framework, there are some gaps. And we also identified other green building rating systems that had similar gaps, but the only rating system that aligned with Swarthmore values for this project was the Living Building Challenge. So that became the measure of success. Next slide. So we began to pursue Living Building Challenge. And one of the key criteria of Living Building Challenge, just to reinforce that green building rating system is on the burden of proof side of the equation here. So we have to show in real life that this building performs as a net zero energy building. So it's a very challenging green building rating system to achieve. Just to give a comparison, there are about several hundred thousands of LEED buildings in the world. There are less than 5 to 6 dozen Living Building Challenge projects in the whole world, because it is very difficult to achieve this challenge. And the Swarthmore community chose this challenge to pursue. And one key aspect of this challenge was to explore biophilia, this idea of love of nature. And we are in this beautiful setting in the Arboretum. So we took a whole group of people and explored, what does this really mean to be biophilic? How can the Swarthmore campus inspire this design? Next slide. And that led to, Benjamin showed the site plan earlier, but this is an earlier concept of that same site plan. That led to the development of this amazing landscape plan that works hand in hand with the Swarthmore, with the Arboretum. And as you can see, there's lots of opportunities for a vegetable garden. There is a garden in front of, or there was a garden in front of the Sharples Hall, and that will be replicated in some fashion. There's a vegetable garden, permaculture. That's the growing trend in agriculture. So there will be plenty of opportunities to learn permaculture. And when it's all said and done, over 60% of the landscape palette that's on this site are either edible, directly edible, or used for some kind of purposes for humans, other than being just ornamental. So that is an amazing shift from where we started because of the engagement we had with all of the Swarthmore community. Next slide. So specifically to achieving the zero net energy, which is the amount of energy that you produce on site, should be above or equal to the amount of energy you consume at the building over the course of the year. We developed this approach of top down and bottom up, looking for what is the carrying capacity of the site. Can the site carry X amount of building? And then coming from the bottom, what do we really need? And one of the things that we realized going through this approach is we actually right-sized the program. We reduced the amount of square footage required to satisfy both the needs of community commons as well as dining. That helped tremendously in getting to our zero net energy goal. And as you can see from the bottom of this pyramid, focusing on passive design, how can we not need energy to run this building at all, is the first and foremost step. Focusing on a tight envelope and then focusing on lighting and mechanical controls. Finally, relying on renewable energy was the strategy we took. And one key thing I want to identify here is are two things. One is electrification. what we realized was dining facilities are a very energy intensive building type. And the biggest energy in a dining facility goes towards the kitchen and the equipment in the kitchen. So to achieve the zero net energy goal and the criteria that we set during the early design process or visioning process was that it needed to be an all electric kitchen. And today it's not. It's not an all electric kitchen today. So that was a huge shift in changing to an all electric kitchen, as you can imagine from perceptions of the quality of the food that we can produce from an all electric kitchen to the equipments that are available to even make the type of cuisine that we want. There was all kinds of challenges, but as collectively as a team, including the dining staff, through a number of opportunities, going to conferences and learning about new induction cooking and so on and so forth, we were all able to come together. And now I'm happy to say that we are able to provide a 100% all electric kitchen. So that is one key move towards achieving this goal. And then the other one is centralized geothermal plant. And most of you remember, probably all of you can recall that there is an existing central plant in Swarthmore campus that relies on natural gas powered heating. And that has been in place for a very, very long time. And it is breaking down. And rather than investing more money into that plant, the college, as part of the carbon neutral plan, the college has elected to focus on geothermal, which is, in a simple manner, using the energy that is available right under our feet. The college has a fantastic rock bed. The geothermal plant is basically a system that allows us to take the heat from the building and store it in the underground through a series of pipes. And then when we need that heat back again, we can take it back from the earth. So this is a very effective renewable source of energy, which does not require any fossil fuels to operate. So that is another key design aspect that will help us get to zero net energy. And I'll talk about more on how this particular project provides a space for that geothermal plant. Next slide. These were some earlier studies. As I mentioned, from the top-down approach, we wanted to understand what is the carrying capacity of this project in terms of producing energy. So we looked at various options, and we finally landed on what you see on the left-hand side is we have to cover the entire roof of the new addition to sustain this high energy intensive building of this kitchen. So next slide. So as I mentioned, there are a number of energy saving solutions that we have. One that is significant is demand control ventilation and radiant flooring. We also included another key aspect that the college has is called carbon shadow price, which assigns a certain amount of carbon or a certain amount of price per metric ton of carbon. And that was influential in us deciding what design strategies will get us to zero net energy. Next slide. So this is where we ended up. The chart that you see on the right hand side shows the amount of energy that this building will consume. And it is expressed in terms of energy use intensity, 83 units of energy per square foot. And as you see, the middle portion, 30 units are completely towards the kitchen. And the solar production on top of the new building, which covers the entire roof, will produce the equivalent of 30 units. So in a sense, we will have the entire kitchen will be completely zero net energy, offset by the solar system. The rest of the energy comes from the campus solar that is being developed as part of the carbon neutral plan. So that is how we get to zero energy. So this diagram quickly shows you that the basement of this new facility will host the plant, the central geothermal plant for the entire campus. And as you can imagine, pushing water in or pushing the liquid into the ground and pulling it back up requires amount of pumping equipment. So that's what that space is for. There's an electric kitchen, as I mentioned before, efficient use of lighting, and there's 400 kilowatt of solar panels on top of the roof. Just to give a comparison, a typical home has 10 kilowatt of solar system. So this is 40 times of that. And comfort is again super important, as you saw in the values that were identified. And to achieve comfort, not only from a thermal standpoint, acoustically, there's lots of design features that are put in place that were informed by the biophilic design summit that we had and inspired by the Arboretum. And Benjamin will walk through some of that in the next few slides. But this is, in a nutshell, how we get to zero net energy. Next. Lastly, you can click through a number of slides here, Benjamin. Lastly, this is the Living Building Challenge that I mentioned before, one of the toughest things to achieve. And we are pursuing 5 out of 7 petals within Living Building Challenge. And it doesn't mean that we're not pursuing the other 2. We're not achieving the certain aspects of those requirements in terms of water and materials. And I can go into more details if you have any questions during Q&A. So lastly, we are in construction right now, and in 2022, the new building will be done. And then 2023, the renovation of the existing Sharples will happen. And as I mentioned before, Living Building Challenge requires us to show proof that the building actually performs to the design goals. So that will happen in 2024. So we hope to achieve this certification in 2025.
All right, thank you, Prem. So as we move through, we have about 5 minutes left, and then we'll head toward open discussion, question and answers. So just want to again give an update on construction. This is an aerial drone shot just taken a few weeks ago. Again, we can see the addition south of the existing Sharples. Sharples remains open today for dining on campus. And we can just see here a little bit with the laser, that is the geothermal piping that's going out to Parish Lawn. So that is in preparation for the future state of the geothermal plant. It was something that we wanted to do now as a team working with the college, so we would not disturb the new plantings and new embodied energy that we see here on the project. So doing it now for that future state. So again, that geothermal plant sits under our dining hall. This is a large shell space today as the college pursues carbon neutral here in the next few years. So the building blocks are there, and we're excited to be a part of it. And it did help impact some of our decisions as well, pushing us toward those synergies with how we use the low temp heat versus steam and some of those decisions early on. So really great synergies with that project. Again, this is a view from McGill Walk. This is at the end state. We did look for opportunities to introduce natural light into existing Sharples as well. So you'll see on the right side here, this is a new dormer. It also then begins to marry some of the architectural language that we see here of kind of that post-modern and then kind of into that modern 21st century. So a great juxtaposition of some of the rectilinear into the curvilinear that we see in the form today. And then again, this is that east courtyard. So this is the south door of Sharples today. primarily used with limited access. There is a control point there, but again, this is a reimagined courtyard. So you can grab a clamshell from, or perhaps from the Market Cafe and come outside and really enjoy that. This could be a pre-function space too, as events are taken on the east lawn here. Again, we see that rich tile of slate, the historic stone, and then again, that rich glazing that we see coming through underneath the mass timber here. This is the new serving platforms, as we mentioned, really again, all you care to eat, as well as trying to erode some of those lines, really offer all options to students. It's, grab a plate and have a salad, sit back down, come up, grab another plate, at the allergen aware perhaps. So really trying to think this as a service first model here. Again, we see the dining staff out and about having those conversations, really educating the students and visitors about the food. All the materials are of very natural. We are pursuing red list free where we can, and so thinking about the chemicals that go into the production of materials and what that does for the indoor air quality as well, the air environment. In the new dining, didn't mention it earlier, but we're targeting over 800 seats within the new dining facility, and currently Sharples is just around that 550 mark. So really thinking about the future growth of the campus and some of those opportunities that we can have a variety of seating and different seating styles to really suit the needs of all. Some like to gather large groups, some like to have that heads down time and still work through and study through their mealtime. And then again, this is just another quick view here of the additional platforms up on the upper level, additional salad bar next to the grill. Again, a variety of seating, rich materials. Again, thinking about those acoustics as well and active control of the lighting. We love the photo up in the upper left. Just get that sense of scale, that sense of volume that's going to be coming through when you're underneath the mass timber and those views out that we'll see. And speaking of those views out, coming out of the tunnel under the SEPTA tracks, this is the new rain garden. So if you're on campus in the last few weeks, you have seen this come online. Again, this is the accessible pathway. It's a combined pathway today. In the past, there were 2 routes, and today everyone is on the same journey and really thinking about that experience for everyone as that equitable journey under the tracks and up past the dining hall here. Just a few more slides as we wrap up. Again, we talked about that shifting of the stair, the mirroring of the stair within Sharples. So here we're at the north entry of Sharples today. In that photo, we can see we're behind the glass vestibule. That is again reconfigured, and now we've introduced what was once the Juliet balcony over the stairwell is actually the new stairway itself. You're greeted with a welcome desk for all visitors. This will be really important to the tour of campus. And what's great here too, just to point out, is the reclaimed wood. So some of the donor signage, some of these elements here that we see to the left is part of the reclaimed wood. So the history of the tree lives on, that, if it did have to give its life for this project to expand, we're celebrating that in memory of. So there's going to be moments there throughout the project that really touch back to the existing conditions and really celebrate, the beauty of the wood. And then I think we close here. Again, what's dining today? And we've seen the rapid expansion of chairs over the years of the historic photos. This now becomes a student event and lounge space. And so there's a raised stage near the back wall here for poetry readings, for acoustic guitar nights. There are projectors, so if the Halloween party comes, they're going to come down. You're going to have a rich audiovisual experience. And we can also see that the new dormer that we've introduced, just flooding the East Lounge or East Dining today, new lounge space with daylight, variety of seating, hard seats, soft seats, couches, built-in banquettes, and certainly an improvement upon the acoustics in the space as well. So we're excited to see that in the coming years here. And with that, we'll turn it over to Susan and team.
Great, thank you, Benjamin and Prem. That's excellent. So I'm going to throw out a few questions that we've had come in over the course of the presentation. We've answered a few, but I think these are ones that are beyond me and Anthony. So One of them is about the noise level. A couple people have said the noise in Sharpless is bad now, and they're hoping it won't be like that in the new space. Can you talk a little bit about acoustic mitigation?
Yep, certainly. And that was something we did hear through our engagement process. We do look at that with our in-house acousticians. In the addition, as well as existing Sharples, there is acoustic treatment on the walls, on the ceilings. We're also looking for that absorption within some of the furnishings as well. So it is a very hard place in Sharples now with the stone and the tile floors. And so the introduction of the acoustic ceiling panels, baffles, as well as the changing of furniture. So we've had done studies and continue to pursue that. Kind of as Prem mentioned, a little bit of proof of burden there too. As we begin to inhabit the space, we will go back and run the calculations again. But we certainly want to create a space for all, and certainly acoustics is a big one.
And just a reminder, as people, I see there's the lively conversation in the chat. But if you have questions, if you can throw them in the Q&A, just because that's where I'm looking to moderate the questions. Thanks. Another one, Prem, if you could talk about the life of the solar panels, what the life expectancy is.
Absolutely. So solar panels produced today are guaranteed for their production capacity for at least 20 years, meaning they will not lose the rated production for 20 years, but their life will be, but they will continue to produce at a lesser rate after 20 years. So they could go on forever, 40, 50 years very easily.
Great. It's exciting too. I'll just say on the solar side, we're working with a company in Philadelphia called Solar States. They have been extremely helpful and excited about this project. They do a lot of work in the city of Philadelphia on sort of existing buildings, warehouse buildings, where they're trying to increase solar capacity. They use a lot of labor directly from the city. So it's really that's been a great collaboration as we're bringing the design to life. And we were able to buy the panels through a cooperative process, so we're also able to get a great price on them, which is not an insignificant issue. I want to touch back on something that was asked in the very beginning, which is the need for this project, and Anthony can expound on this a bit as well. Currently, the current Sharpless building was built when the college population was around 800 students. We are at 1650 right now. So it is extremely crowded. As you can imagine, during this period of sensitivity about crowding, it's particularly interesting, but even before COVID, it's a very crowded, sort of inhospitable situation right now. Students do not feel that they can linger at all. They don't feel that it's comfortable because you're very aware that you're taking a seat from someone else who needs to come in and eat. There has also been a real focus in the last few years on kind of student health and wellness, and the idea of getting students, as Benjamin mentioned, to unplug a little bit. And so we're hoping that this project can really fulfill kind of both of those needs. And Anthony, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I think, you've outlined it quite well. I believe, a lot of this we started a long time ago in 2016 when we did a visioning study on the campus, and we were learning about what students' needs were and where we were deficient in some ways of how we were supporting students through the process. And we continued from the visioning study to working on collecting information from all the students and working with the community to figure out what was the best avenue, what we were going to do. And Sharples itself, the building did not lend itself to a great renovation for a dining, to expand dining. The walls are pretty well set. There's not a lot of movement that we could do with moving things out front. There was just a very, very complicated. But as we went through the process, we really found that, Sharpless, or Sharples, as some people call it, but Sharpless is the name, has found, that has that ski lodge type feel and really created the community center, as you kind of think about it, like that center for students and for all to come and be able to relax and enjoy. And so, as we thought about it, the best avenue was, taking and making this larger building into the connection with dining and the experience and giving students an opportunity of a place to lounge, but also a place to go eat. And the current dining hall really turned into the place where you eat and lounge. And with the capacity that we're dealing with, it created a lot of issues, because if people weren't turning over the chairs, there wasn't enough seating. There was also, there's just space issues. The building is a little bit odd laid out. All these things kind of lend itself to why we needed to move towards a more opportune type of dining program that we're looking at. And the other challenge too is students coming in now are experiencing much higher issues when it comes to allergens and other things that they're experiencing. And as they're coming here, everybody's experiencing more customizable food, and the current condition of how we were serving that in Sharples really created some struggles. And so we really wanted to make sure that we're accommodating all the students, and that we're creating opportunity for students to create and engage with all of our staff, and become a part of where they get to know all of our staff. From the cooking, they can see everything that's happening now, that will be happening. And all these pieces are really going to fundamentally create a great experience for those that are coming in. And what I truly enjoy and think about with this too is students will be able to sit outside on a patio, that it's a part of the program, and not have to feel like they have to take their tray and they're going outside and sitting on the lawn and then having to bring their stuff back in. And there's a lot of great impact, I think, that this new dining hall is going to create from a social experience, and then the opportunity to go eat and then go lounge in another space. So you can go enjoy your food, you can use that time as fellowship, and then you can go study, or you can go hang out on the other side, and all it is a walk through to the other building. And it creates that total experience versus kind of trying to make that happen in one building where it's difficult. So there was a lot of pieces that kind of came together to create that, but this is really I think going to be an experience for all. And as alum coming back and you get an opportunity to engage this, I think we'll be able to have you sit in there at the same time as students if you come back and visit, and not feel like you're taking up space from them. Or even our faculty and staff on campus will start to create an engagement. And that's really about this experience, this experience that we're trying to create, is that it's a wholesome experience for everybody. And this building really gives us the opportunity, and I think it embodies so much of what we have as values when it comes to our sustainability, to what we're trying to create as a community that we want to have, and creating those things. So I'm really excited about this project, and this has been something that I've been working on since the day I've arrived on this campus, and I just cannot believe where we're at today. And I'm just truly, waiting and excitement for this building to open myself. So hopefully that helps answer that question as best we could.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, I'm seeing some lovely comments in the chat. Thank you, everyone. We are, I would say, super excited about it. And for those of you who remember Tarble, not old, what we unfortunately now call Old Tarble, but the original Tarble, I gather, and I came, by the way, for the opening of Clothier Hall when Tarble was moved in there after the fire. So I never got to know the original building, but from what I gather, that was a real heart of the campus. And really, since then, we have lacked that. So that's what we're hoping to bring back with this project.
So there's one question, Susan, that was, why are we building more? Why are we putting more seats in this building, given the size of the student body? I think, there's an easy answer to that. When Sharp Bliss was built in 1963, I believe, it was built for 900 students on the campus, and now we're achieving over 1,600 students. And so the experience of a dining hall that was built for 900, and when they've almost doubled the size, has created a lot of overcrowding and impact to the experience that people are having. So I think that's, this really was another part of this that led to the opportunity for why we needed to expand the seating.
And Anthony, actually, I think the question was, why aren't there more seats? So can you just talk about how we arrived at that number a little bit?
I'm sorry. So we worked on, so that number actually was derived. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Sometimes hard to read the chat when everything's coming through at once. So we actually did a study on that, and there's a current process that when we were working on this. So the current dining hall has very large tables in it to maximize the seating in the space. So most tables are 8 to 10 people sitting at a table, or even sometimes connected where we have almost 20 across. And so what that creates is students don't use every single seat in that experience. So it creates a lot of open spots of students not using all the spaces. And what we want to call efficiency of seating is the way we looked at this when we were going through and evaluating how many seats we needed. And since we're adding with the new space, a lot of 2-seaters, a lot of 4-seaters, a lot of 6-seaters, a lot of 8-seaters, some 10 tops, we're going to have such a mix of different seating that the use of the space allows us to get to the point that by increasing to between 850 and 875 seats, once we get into the space and have everything in line, we'll be able to, at that point, be able to accommodate what we're dealing with as we'll have people coming in and out. The other part is you don't want to build a building just alone to seat everybody at one time. We actually looked at that as a part of, just the building size, and the mass of the building would go from where we are today by another 20,000 square feet easily to accommodate that. And so, as we want to think about, as we thought about this project, we really wanted this building to fit into the landscape and not be something that stood out so much that it created this mass that everybody's just like, why did we build 1,600 seats? And we don't need 1,600 seats because you don't want everybody at the same time. So so basically our math came through as we had some dining consultants additionally that helped us with that, where we got to the number that we needed based on the student body population. And we also looked at what if we increased by a little bit, right? So what if we did go up by 10% in our population? How would we deal with that? And this dining hall will be able to accommodate that. So we did not just build this for where we're at today. We built this for thinking about what the future would look like and how we would deal with those issues as they arise.
I think we have answered the questions for the most part, and I think we are at our time. And I see one more question about hours. Yes, we will have much expanded hours for dining. That is a big goal.
I can touch base on that.
Both in the evening and in the morning.
Yeah, and I can touch on that.
I think we're just about out of time. So I will just say thank you to everybody for attending, and thank you for our panelists from far away, both Benjamin and Prem. Thank you so much. And I believe, Jeff, there is going to be some method of sharing this after. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yes, it has to be cleaned up, but we'll get it out there, and we'll get the word out to the alumni where they can view it.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Thanks so much. And thanks for all the alums for taking part also, and parents.
Thank you all. It's good.
Thank you all. Bye.